Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our NAT webinar in the series Safe Blood Fridays. Today, we have with us our guest speaker, Dr. Manoj Kahar sir. He is a consultant at Shushrusha Blood Center, Navsari, and also currently owns Bhanumati Clinical Laboratory, and with more than 21 years of experience in the field of transfusion medicine. Dr. Kahar was the former head of department HOD of the Red Cross Society. He specializes in transfusion science practice from the University of Manchester and stem cell transplantation science from the British Blood Transfusion Society, UK. Dr. Kahar has multiple publications in national and international journals of pathology and transfusion medicine. He is the first to clear advanced certificate in transfusion medicine exam in 2022 by Asian Associations of Transfusion Medicine. He is also NABH accessor for Blood Bank since 2012. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, madam. And do I share my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In our today's discussion, we would be focusing on role and awareness of NAT in the safety of blood transfusion. What are the concerns associated with NAT setup? How other blood banks can adopt NAT, and his experiences on setting up NAT in the independent blood bank. Also, I would like to mention to everybody that we will be taking the question session at the end of the webinar. So anyone who has any questions or queries can enter those questions in the Q&A section, and we'll address them after sir's presentation. So I would like to tell sir that he can go ahead with the presentation.
Are my slides visible to you, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And are they in the full screen mode?
Yes, sir.
Okay, should I begin?
Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon to Dipti madam. And at the outset, I thank MyLab Solutions for giving me this opportunity to share my views on why high 100% NAT in TTI screening in blood centers, and why we must think over this and try to convince our management to go for a NAT in our blood centers. So, blood centers ensuring safe blood transfusion practices direct their efforts towards and blood donor. Safety of the blood donors as well as the safety of the recipients. These are our two arms. And blood safety is a challenging task in India with a population of around 1.30 billion. And unfortunately, we have a high prevalence rate 8% and HCV 2% in general population. To attain reduction in the incidence of TTI, the disease in the pre-seroconversion or window phase of their infection. As we know, most of our serological tests, we detect the antibodies against the infectious agent. So it takes time for the antibody to develop in the infected person, and the antibody has to attain a level at which it can be detected by the serological test. So it has to go to that level that it can be detected by our tests. So this is our window phase or pre-seroconversion phase. And during this phase, if the donor donates the blood, then despite testing, the infection would not be picked up, and the blood bank can issue a unit which can transmit the TTI. Then there are immunological variances in the viruses which could not be detected by our serological testing. Some donors, they are immunosilent carriers. Means what happens? The antigen is already in his or her body. However, they are not responding by forming antibodies. And such donors are non-seroconverting, chronic, or immunosilent carriers. And we know that our testing is divided into three phases: pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical phase. And each of these phase has limitations, and errors can creep in either at the pre-analytical stage during the labeling process, mix-up of the samples, hemolyzed samples, problems in centrifugation, and lot many things. This all there are the failures of the kits, equipments, they are not calibrated properly, they are not maintained properly. Then there are technical limitations on the people who are performing the test assay. So there are lot many issues in the analytical phase. And similarly, you can have post-analytical errors where there can be problem in the transcription errors and things like that. So our ELISA testing is not that foolproof. What I mean to say is, it's not foolproof, despite automation coming into the ELISA testing. So these are the four reasons why transfusion still can be transmitting TTIs. Now, when we move towards nucleic acid testing, there are definite advantages. It is a highly sensitive and specific for viral nucleic acids. And as we all know that it is based on the amplification of targeted regions of viral ribonucleic acid RNA or deoxyribonucleic acid. In case of our 3H, hepatitis B virus is a DNA, we detect DNA, and HIV, HCV RNA. So what is the main advantage of nucleic acid testing? It has been reported by various studies that NAT reduces the window period or the seroconversion of hepatitis B virus to 10.34 days, HCV to 1.34 days, and HIV to 2.93 days. So what's foremost advantage, top advantage is NAT reduces the window period substantially in all these infections. Second, the analytical sensitivity of nucleic acid testing is several times greater than that of the antigen detection or virus isolation methods. And therefore, NAT offers a clear-cut advantage on this antigen detection, antibody detection, or virus isolation methods. So analytical sensitivity of NAT is very high. And at present, there are three main players in our NAT testing. One is Ultrio, then Cobas, Virus, and NetSpert kit by my labs. And if you see here, I have given you a comparable table for various limit of detection, lower limit of detection. And these are the various units, and more or less they are the same, and they are highly sensitive tests. So even a small amount of that virus, if it is present in your unit, it will be detected by NAT testing. So their analytical sensitivity is very high. Second important point. Third point, with the new systems, multiplexing an individual donor NAT testing is possible. Multiplexing means in a single tube format, you can detect HIV 1 RNA, group M and O, HIV 2 RNA, HCV RNA, genotype 1 to 6, HPV DNA, genotype A to H. All this can be detected in the single tube. And multiplexing favors all the three viral genomes to be mandatorily tested for donated units. Now, there are some issues and debates whether we want to go for individual NAT testing or mini pool NAT testing, MP NAT testing. So individual NAT testing, ID NAT testing has several advantages over pooling of sample for NAT. The most important being better sensitivity. Now, when we study the kit literature and when we perform the tests, extraction system of most NAT system uses 1 ml of plasma for extraction of nucleic acids. So if we pull 6 to 8 donors, then just about 150 to 200 microliter of one donor plasma will be in that tube, because we are pulling 6 donors, 6 to 8 donors. So from one donor, you are going to get only 150 to 200 microliter instead of the 1 ml in the individual NAT test. This means that the load of viruses is very small. Then there are chances that viral count may be lower than the detection limit of the PCR assay. So now we are coming to this point. If the sample volume is less, then in mini pool testing, there are chances that the viral detection may be missed. And most importantly, even this very small number of virus particles are capable of transmitting infection to the recipient. Then, fourth point is we have to also see the analytical specificity of the NAT. Means they should not give you false positives. And all major variants of HIV, HBV, and HCV prevalent in India are detected by the routine NAT assays which are available. And as I have discussed already, HIV genotype A to H, including AE and GH, HIV1, group M and O, HIV2 RNA, HCV RNA genotype 1 to 6, HPV genotype AH, and pre-COVID. All these are particularly and specifically detected by NAT assay. So there is not issue of false positivity. Then NAT nowadays it is adapted for automation and also for space constraint in most blood centers. So these companies, many of them are now indigenous companies in India. They are coming with very compact size instruments which can be then accommodated in our blood centers, because as we know, blood banks, they are having space constraints. So the indigenous companies which are manufacturing these instruments and kits, they are coming with compact systems and they are very user friendly, and they are adapted for automation. They require least technical expertise. So one of them is this MyLab's Compact DX, and they have one another which is Compact XL. And they, if you see the dimensions, instrument size, it is 1300 by 775 by 700, not much. And this is very small, benchtop model. So space, area, these issues are being addressed by this compact NAT systems. Then many times we discuss this NAT yield. Now what is this NAT yield? NAT yield means all those units which were serologically showing negative results, they have been subjected to NAT testing, and out of this negative serologic results, how many turn positive? That is termed as NAT yield. Now, when you take into consideration different publications, the NAT yield will be varying. And this I have taken all studies, these all studies are from India only. I have not taken any study from Western literature. These all studies which I have listed, and in each of these slides, I have given you the references also. So these are the references for all these studies. And if you see here, the yield varies. Say, for example, in this study from Odisha, it was a very used study in 2021. And then NAT yield is, see, how much? 1 in 234, 1 in 234. Similarly, if you see in this study in 2012, the NAT yield is 1 in 2972. So when you take the literature, when you study the NAT yields in a publication, you need to study in detail that particular study. What are the points you will consider during that? First, in that study, in a particular study, what were the total number of samples tested? Second, what were their percentage of voluntary donors and what were their percentage of replacement donors. Third point to be seen in those studies, testing platform for serological test, whether they were using semi-automated methods or fully automated methods. Also, whether they were testing this serology by ELISA methods or by chemiluminescence methods. If they were using ELISA tests, whether they were using third generation or fourth generation, all these points what I am telling, they will influence the net yield. So when you take net yield and study the net in a particular study, please take into consideration all these 4 points what I have mentioned. Say, for example, if you take this study, second number, Jane R. at R. Jane et al. So here, if you see, their voluntary blood donation is 84.65. Means majority of their donors are voluntary donors. And therefore, their net yield will be less. If you see here, study number 9, Mangwana S. Their voluntary blood donation is only 3.8%. And therefore, the net yield is high. So those blood banks who have high number of replacement donors, they should definitely think over net, because the net yield will be more in their blood collection because they have a larger number of replacement donors. So when you study net yield, please take into consideration all these 4 points what I have listed earlier. Total number of samples studied in that particular paper publication, percentage of voluntary versus non-replacement donors, then testing platform used for serological tests, whether it was semi-automated or automated, whether they were using ELISA or chemiluminescence. If ELISA was used, then what was the generation of the test? Third generation, fourth generation. Now, this I have taken a very recent study published in Transfusion Medicine in 2022. Now, if you see this here, they have given data for HBV, HCV, HPV. This is the first time donor and this is the replacement donor. If you take NAT only, most of them, they are in the first time donor. So here 7 and first time donor. And if you see their yield also, they are more in replacement as compared to voluntary. So in your blood bank, you have to see the donor pool, whether more of your donors are replacement donors, more of your donors are first time donors, then you should definitely think to implement NET, because in those situations, the net yield will be more. Then utility of NAT testing results in donor notification and counseling. Serological testing for TTI may give false positive results in many occasions. We are not going into details because of want of time, but we know that TTI serological tests, they give false positive results many times. So such false positive results place the blood bank counselor in an embarrassing situation. However, with NAT testing, false positives are negligible and the counselor can confidently notify and counsel the donor on the TTI results based on the NAT testing. So NAT testing also has a role while you are notifying and counseling the donor on TTI results. Then utility of NAT testing results in litigation and legal inquiries. Due to bombardment of information in print media as well as internet, blood donors as well as social activists, they are well read and educated on the testing facilities available for TTI on donor units. They all know about, they are well read about NAT facilities and things like that. And in unfortunate cases of litigations, if the blood center uses NAT testing and maintains proper documentation, then blood banks do not have much problem in convincing the judiciary regarding the quality of TTI testing in their blood centers, and these blood centers then are saved from ill fame and disrepute. So in litigations and legal inquiries also, NAT testing will save your skin. Now, most of the blood centers in India are into component separation, and leftover plasma is outsourced for fractionation. So performing NAT testing in the primary blood center adds to the safety of the plasma pools being made for fractionation center. And in some of the Western countries, the monetary compensation offered by the plasma fractionation center for NAT tested plasma units is quite different than the units tested by serological methods. So if you are testing the donor unit by NAT, then that is an additional level of safety for the source plasma to the plasma fractionation center. So this point is also an added advantage of NAT testing. Now, what are the challenges faced in setting NAT lab by independent laboratories? First and foremost is most blood centers in India have space constraints, and most blood banks are squeezed into mandatory requirements of that 150 square meters by FDA to establish a blood center. And carving out space for setting up NAT lab is a big challenge. However, with compact systems by MyLab like this, compact DAFs and similar smaller compact systems are now being coming up by indigenous companies, and they help to resolve this problem of space constraint to a big extent. Then high investment costs for instruments, high running costs for reagents, lack of maintenance support, the need for cold chain transport and storage of reagents, trained manpower, they are all other issues to be addressed while setting up NAT testing. So when you are setting up a NAT testing lab, all these are the points which need to be considered. However, because many indigenous companies are coming, these issues are being addressed. And these local companies, indigenous companies, they give us regular and continuous support. So the cost of NAT testing is coming down. The results are at par with the Western kits and instruments. Space constraints are being taken care of while these companies, when they are manufacturing our instruments. So to conclude, blood safety is a challenge in India because of the high prevalence of HIV, HCV, and HPV, the relative low percentage of volunteer donors, and lack of standardization of screening procedures among multitude of blood collection centers. So in India, blood safety is a challenge because we have high prevalence of HIV, HCV, HPV. There is relative high percentage of replacement donors. And when we compare the prevalence of this 3H in India, they are quite high as compared to US blood donors. And in spite of all the precautionary measures used by blood collecting agents to avoid inoculating infectious agents into transmission recipients, it is possible to transmit disease when blood from a recently infected donor fails to be identified routine screen test because of this window period. And during the window period, the donor is infected, but they could not be detected by our routine serological tests. And this technological limitation puts blood recipients at a definite, though infrequent, risk for transmissible diseases. Since viremia precedes seroconversion by several days to weeks, as we have noted down in the window period, tests that detect viral nucleic acid are considered significant technological advancement and an additional step in our quest to achieve the goal of zero risk for blood transfusion recipients. And considering the high prevalence of viral infection, the number of transfusions which are happening in India, the high proportion of component separation in our country, need for NAT testing to prevent TTIs is absolute. We must all think over this. So when you are planning to establish NAT testing, please think over these points. Specificity of the assay, how specific the assay are. Nowadays, these kits, they are very specific. Sensitivity, the limit of detection, and the results should not compromise the sensitivity. Ease of use. When you are taking the system, see whether it is user friendly or not. Individual sample testing is possible or not. Multiplexing is possible or not. Then what are the optimal set of controls available to monitor the quality of the testing? full automation is available or not, whether the results are fast for release. Usually most of the system, they gives us result in 2 hours after sample loading, and whether the systems are meeting the regulatory compliance from FDA. So when you decide upon selecting a system and establishing a NAT lab, please take into consideration all these parameters which I have listed here. So with this, I'll thank you. Where there is a will, there is a way. So if you have a will to establish a NAT lab, you will definitely succeed. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, my lab team. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So I would now request everyone, if they have any questions, they could put their questions in a Q&A box, and we would take them one by one.
Madam, should I stop share, or should I keep the presentation open? Because if there is a query, I can go back to that slide.
Yes, sir. I think so. The presentation can be shared, sir. We can keep it shared.
In the share
I
mode?
can see, sir, a few questions that we are able to see on the chat box. The first one is how NAT yield is really very important in the blood bank.
So basically, what do you mean by NAT yield? NAT yield means your serology shows negative result. That means no infection is detected. And those results, those samples, when they are tested by NAT, they will show you positive result. So we prepare components. So if such a unit is being issued, it will infect 3 different recipients. So NAT yield means those units that were labeled as seronegative are actually harboring the agent, and they are infectious. And you are, by way of issuing components, you are harming 3 recipients. And therefore, NAT yield is very, very important. And as I told you, when you are seeing and you are studying the NAT yield test results in various publications, you have to take into consideration all those 4 points which I listed: total number of the samples which were studied in the study, then percentage of voluntary versus replacement, testing platform for serological test, and
Hello.
yes, please.
Yes. Yes, sir. So there is another question. What is reduced of window period from 1 to 34, so on? Okay.
So window period is, when you are talking of window period, the window periods in serological testing are different than window periods in NAT testing. For HIV. So you are reducing the window period by NAT testing. Okay, ma'am. Any other question?
Again, there's another question which mentions that why individual testing, that is ID NAT, is better than mini pool. So this you have already addressed. Yes. Yes, sir.
But still, I will answer and explain that
Yes.
if the person has missed. See, in individual testing, you take 1 ml of plasma for extraction of the nucleic acid. Now, when you are using mini pool, then you need to make 1 ml, and for making that 1 ml from mini pool, you are taking 150 to 200 microliter from each of the 6 pools. or 150 microliters from one of the donor. Now, if your viral load is less, then when you are taking less volume, the chances of virus to be picked in this less even you may miss picking up virus in the mini pool. Second point is when mini pool is positive, then what you have to do, each of the 6 or 10 or 12 mini pool, whatever will be the mini pool, each one have to be run individually. So unless and until you are not sure which of these 6 or which of these 12 units is positive for the virus, all these units, they are lying in your inventory and you are not able to issue these units. This is also another disadvantage of mini pool. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir. There's one more question, sir. Do we need to perform ELISA first, then NAT, or we can go directly to NAT?
No, at present, the FDA doesn't allow only NAT testing. So ELISA has to be done. As we have been discussing from the very beginning, NAT is an additional safety layer. Please understand, when we determine the safety of the recipient, it's a pyramid. At the base, you have the donor screening, your questionnaire, then you have the self-referral of the donor, then you have the ELISA testing, and at the top of the pyramid will be NAT testing. So NAT testing is not replacing your ELISA testing, but if you test all your seronegative units by NAT, you may be able to pick up few units which were negative by serology, and that units then will be discarded and will not be issued for the patients. So you are adding one more layer of safety for the recipients.
Yes. Thank you, sir. I think so. If at all there are any queries, you are free to drop us an email and connect with us for any queries or inquiries. Thank you, sir, for highlighting the importance and adaptation of NAT testing in blood bank. We thank you for your valuable time, and the guidance that you provided was very insightful. Thank you once again, sir, for for taking out the time today and having this session with us.
I also reciprocate the same to the team MyLab and all the participants who join online for this webinar. And it's my pleasure. And if there are any such needs in future, I am always at your disposal. Should I stop sharing now? Do you want to say something from your end, ma'am?
No, sir.
So should I stop sharing here?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I would request everyone, if at all there are any queries, I have shared an email ID. We have shared the email ID with you where you can connect with us for any commercial discussion or any queries that you have for this NAT spot product, as well as the automation that we offer. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Take care. Bye for now.